Hi guys. So why is our masculine and feminine energy, men and women in the world, seem to be so inverted? Why are we so unhappy with the opposite sex? Obviously, this is not a novel idea. This started a long, long time ago, and the variations of oppression and oppressor and who had more rights and who didn't have more rights, obviously, this is all very obvious. What I want to talk about is what's happening right now because of this is an effect because of what had happened in the past, but we need to start to understand this so we can become more aligned with who we actually are, become more happy, and become willing to actually start to make shift within the world. I do believe this very deep misunderstanding of the masculine and feminine energy and what's happening is a contributing factor to many things that play out in the world to some degree. So I just want to clarify. Obviously, the differences between men and women are very obvious. I don't need to get into it and how women have been further behind with many of our rights and privileges than men. What had happened was, at some point, we started to want to reclaim that power, but often that power was rooted in anger and frustration. I'm not saying that having righteous anger is a bad thing, but at some point you need to actually heal from the ways in which we as a gender have felt oppressed to be able to bring back the man into the picture, into our lives, into the world in a healthy way where we can co-create together as genders. What's happening now? It's very obvious, is that women are taking over the world. Women are going to be the leaders. Women are taking over everything. I'm not saying this is bad, but what I want you to clearly see is that as a woman, we're not actually built to do it all, okay? If you want to do it all, that's fine with me, right? I have to say that I personally tried to do it all, and it was a lot for me, and I became very exhausted. Right? So having strong, healthy men who have an ability to be intelligent and understand themselves and be mature. When you get those energies working together of a female who is not living her life based off of trauma and feeling this inner anger and resentment still and trying to prove something in the world, that's an unhealed trauma-based response. When you have a woman who's understood where she's come from, she's done some self-work, she understands her childhood and her background, and she has healed to the capacity where she can have a really healthy, non-judgmental relationship. If you get this sort of a person matched with a man who's done the same, there's nothing more beautiful and powerful and authentic and really, truly game-changing when you get these energies together. The problem is that both genders have undergone such tremendous defeat and wounding that it's very hard for us to really connect. We all know now that people are getting married much later. People are having children much later if they are even deciding to have children. Divorce rates are so high. We live in a world, in a society where we just, flip for dates. We don't even really take time to really look and understand people. It's become too convenient to have a very surface level relationship. And if we start to feel disenfranchised with the person, instead of actually reflecting back on ourselves and doing this kind of mirror work, it's just so easy to just, okay, who's my next going to be? Or the bigger trauma response is, I don't need a man. I don't need a man. Forget it. They're all dogs. I don't need a man. So not healthy either. Not healthy either. All right. So what I would love to just mention to you guys today, as a woman, it took an exceptional amount of self-work, self-reflection, self-inquiry to realize where I came from and how I projected that onto the men in my life. Okay? So, for instance, for my situation, this may not be yours, but if you grew up with a father who was not strong, who was more weak and controlled by the woman, then you grew up without a very strong father figure. Okay? So in my case, that's kind of how it was, is that, my dad was kind of controlled by the women, and the women were kind of in that more trauma-based energy where it was more dominating. This is not healthy. This is not healthy. Both of them have wounds and they're actually feeding off of each other, right? So it's kind of like that whole narcissist empath dynamic where without one, you couldn't have the other. So they both need to look at each other. They're both wounded in that case. So if that's what you grew up with, you're going to attract men where you're seeking approval and you're self-martyring yourself, and you might turn out to be the one that's too nice, you know, or you may flip into the other energy of the dominating woman. So you need to know what your childhood looked like, okay, and really how the relationship between your parents was, because that's what's going to play out and reflect into your current dynamics. And if, you know, you were raised by a mother who had been scorned and hurt by a lot of men in her life, and she told you that men were bad, or, you know, you use men for money and safety and this, well, then you might be, you know, unconsciously playing out that same exact thing. So as a woman, when you're in a balanced state of energy, you don't need to reclaim power. You don't need to reclaim power because you realize that you're not empowered. That's a story that you've been fed. That's a story that you've been taught. You're not disempowered. That's a story, okay? So when you feel balanced in your female energy, you feel, I'm not saying you're weak, but you feel strong yet graceful. You feel like you can communicate clearly. You don't run away. You don't shut off. You don't react. These are all very immature emotions, all right? And listen, nobody really teaches this. Nobody teaches emotional literacy in school that I know of, so we all have to learn on our own. And it has a lot to do with the family that you grew up with. God bless you if you grew up with parents that were really emotionally literate and could communicate from their truest selves. Most of us did not. But women who are in a balanced energy want a strong man. Women who are not quite in that healed energy want a man that they can control. They want a man who's going to be more submissive, to listen to what they think is right and they want to do. It's not really a balanced combination of this energy of masculine and feminine working together. And energy is always going to seek for a harmonious balance. So if you're very dominating, you can probably see in your life how your counterpart is going to be more submissive because they might not know how to approach you, or they feel defeated, or you know, they don't even know what to do, so they just check out. But then simultaneously, as women, we wonder, well, why are they checked out? They're not involved. What are they thinking? Well, because they can't say anything, because whatever you say, they aren't right. So you really have to be willing to look at yourself. This is always my prime message. Look at yourself. If you're unhappy in relationship, notice, are the men in your life exhibiting a lot of the same characteristics? Then you need to go back to your childhood and you need to start to really understand what you were raised with, what kind of understanding you had of the opposite sex, or even the same sex, whatever relationship that you're in. A healthy relationship, you should be able to communicate effectively. There shouldn't even really need to be yelling. Just shouldn't need to be. You should be able to talk. You might have to take breaks from each other at some point, but there should be no yelling, no real reactionary expression. You should be able to communicate effectively, because yelling is reactions coming from responses from you triggered my wound, and now I'm going to react really quickly. So when you have this balanced energy, you want a counterpart who is as strong as you, right? You want somebody, not that you can control, not to do whatever you want to do. You realize that they're a sovereign being, they're an independent agent in the relationship, and that you guys work together as a means to contribute to the relationship, your children, society in a really balanced way. We all need to turn the finger back on us very often. So a woman who's balanced wants a strong man, because that's the natural energy of a man, is somebody who, you know, they're structural, they build firm foundations, they hold space. And when I say strong, I don't mean dominating. This is what we need to understand. They're strong, and they have a lot to say that's actually quite wise. It's when that energy is suppressed that they flip into this energy where then they too become reactionary, or more often just completely shut down. Okay? So take a moment, self-reflect. What do your relationships look like? And if you don't feel happy, maybe start to turn the finger back on yourself and see how you can provide more understanding about where you have come from and what you are attracting in your life. Because a good relationship should be peaceful. Yes, you have ups and downs, but it shouldn't be tumultuous. And we shouldn't be a collective of people, the women, who are, I need to gain my empowerment, and men don't know what they're talking about, and I need to be free, and I need to do all the things. Okay, do all the things. And at some point, you'll probably realize that you're tired, okay? Unless you're just living with women that all help each other out. Men, masculine and feminine energy is really beautiful. And it's really beautiful when it's combined in a healthy way. And I just encourage you guys to self-reflect on this concept today and have a good day. Talk to you soon.